This is the project presentation for Environmental Sociology 254. I'm covering ecological diversity and ecosystems. I want to first discuss the difference between ecological diversity and biodiversity. So ecological diversity would be like your overarching. It'd be your rainforest, your desert, your ocean, all that. Your biodiversity is going to be the smaller section. So it would be how each one of my cats likes their own area. This one here is my mouser. He likes going outside. He likes the prairie. He likes hunting for the voles, the mice, birds, squirrels, whatever, what have you. Then you have my inside cat. She likes the AC, the heat, blankets. She doesn't like being outside at all. Very nitpicky. Then you have the little one. She likes the grassy areas. She likes eating grass, rolling around in the grass. Doesn't like going out into the prairie like the black one did. But she doesn't really like being inside all the time either. And then you have the skittish one. You can see him back there. Yeah, this one right here. He was found during a hurricane. He is very apt to storms. He's very scared. He likes being in hidey holes. He'd be kind of like a fox hiding in the holes out in his bio area. What is ecological diversity? It is the ecosystems, species, and resources in nature. It is shaped by the social, economic, and political systems around the world. Gold tells us in the book 20 Lessons in Environmental Sociology that biodiversity loss, pollution, and climate impact and reflect systemic inequalities and unsustainable development for ecological diversity. What that means to tell us is that there are multiple factors that impact ecological diversity. I'll be covering those as the loss of biodiversity, endangered species, biological pollutants, desertification, and ocean acidification. Environmental problems are not simply the result of poor choices or ignorance. They are embedded in the structure of our economic and political systems, says Golden Lewis. I take this to mean that biodiversity loss and pollution are not outcomes of individual behavior, but capitalist production. This is to be the treadmill of production. We see the treadmill production in fast fashion. The demand for must-have clothing every season. The demand for cotton accounts for a quarter of all pesticides used in the United States, says Cassandra Elrod of the Indiana Journal of Global Legal Studies, page 586. She goes on to talk about the amount of water used in these processes. The manufacturing of a single t-shirt and a pair of jeans can require up to 5,000 gallons of water. Cotton clothing and production accounts for 3% of the global water usage a year. This fast fashion and the treadmill of production goes into the loss of biodiversity by the amount of destruction that it can cause. These corporations don't care about the damage they're doing. They're running all this water down, they're polluting it, putting in the dyes, and then putting that back into clean water sources for other countries or other societies. They also are creating an extreme amount of garbage with all of their clothing that they're making. I mean, they make X amount and then it's not in fashion anymore and they just dump it and it goes to a waste area. It's not good for any ecology or ecological area that it goes into. Our second is our endangered species. We must mitigate the negative effects of genetically modified crops. Animal ecology authors Flockhart and Picancourt researched and concluded that these crops are involved in the destruction of native plants like milkweed for monarch butterflies. 14% of these butterflies have been wiped out due to breeding grounds. It's the GMOs that we're putting in crops. It's good for society, but it's not good for the ecosystems. All it's doing is it's continuing the increase of pesticides. like in the study for the monarch butterflies, it's completely wiping out milkweed. These monarchs need the milkweed leaves to put their eggs on to allow them to grow, and these pesticides, due to these crops, is just wiping that out. Another endangered species that I want to cover is cervids, i.e. deer, moose, elk, and CWD. CWD is chronic wasting disease. Due to the lack of predators, they just continue to spread. The prions in CWD is not easily eradicated. With the lack of wolves and other predators keeping these cervids down, hunters aren't going to want to go out there and kill these deer. It is up to conservation officers to take care of them, but it's getting pretty bad. It's spread to quite a bit of northern Minnesota. We need to rethink what counts as violence, to include the attritional lethality of toxic drift, deforestation, and the slow poisoning of water, Nixon says in Chapter 1 of our textbook, Slow Violence and the Environmentalism of the Poor. This can also cover the lack of regulation for contaminants spreading invasive species. That term, attritional lethality, is very dark when we're talking about ecological diversity. Attritional lethality is the slow but consistent, complete destruction of an area. When we're talking about that with toxic drift, we're talking about those dyes coming from fast fashion. We're talking about the runoff from corporations, industrial plants, cooling water, all of that getting put back into the water systems. We're talking about deforestation, the slow but progressive destruction of the rainforests in order to allow for more beef production. The invasive species that I wanted to cover goes back to my first post. It is talking about starry stonewort coming into Minnesota through ballast water. This is to be destructive algae. It comes in, it's ruining the ecosystems of different fish, the biodiversity of their streams and their canals that they want is completely plugged with this algae. The ballast water discharge is coming from shipping, boats, the shipping logistics. They're not being checked. It's a microorganism that spreads throughout, and then it just attaches to regular boats, not even commercial boats, regular personal boats, and they're not cleaning them properly. Starry stonewort's been covered through the DNR often. It's not to be confused with muskrat, stonewort, sago pondweed, or narrow-leafed pondweed. Those are native plants, but starry is the problem. Another item of endangered species is the world systems theory. This can go into multiple theories or causes and also different impacting factors for ecological diversity. But the world systems theory is the three categories are not fighting each other, but they're intertwined. The first category is the core countries, the second is the semi-periphery, and the third is the peripheral. The core countries is Western Europe, the United States, Australia, New Zealand, and Japan. The semi-periphery is Mexico, Brazil, Argentina, Taiwan, South Korea, India, China, Saudi Arabia, and South Africa. Peripheral nations bear the brunt of biodiversity loss due to exploitation by the core economies. These peripheral nations countries are throughout Africa, Central and South America, and Southeastern Asia. What these exploitations is soy and beef to core countries, the displacement of indigenous communities, and the destruction of entire societies, like during the banana wars of the early 1900s. The next impacting factor is biological pollutants. I touched these a little bit with endangered species, but this theory is developed, or one theory for biological pollutants would be developed by Ulrich Beck, and he created Risk Society. Modernity is becoming its own theme. The risk society is a catastrophic society. In it, the exceptional condition threatens to become the norm. Modernity produces new invisible risks like genetic contamination and antibiotic resistance. We see this a lot with the over prescription of antibiotics. We, as a society, are becoming immune, per se, to antibiotics. They're starting to be less useful. This is also part with the pesticides and the pharmaceutical runoff that I had touched on, being that we are increasingly becoming more accepting of pesticides and GMOs. You look at different corn crops. Monsanto is the big company that does this. They are specifically genetically modifying their corn and their soybeans and their potatoes to have a genetic code attached to the year that the seed is made and directly back to them. Farmers are not allowed to use these seeds to produce the next year of crop. It would be stealing, not intellectual property, but a type of engineering property. And this is risk society. We're becoming accepting of a corporation deciding what crops are allowed to grow. It's no longer a natural thing. It's industrial agriculture completely taking control. Another impacting factor is desertification. Corporations are not the only player in contributing to the destruction of ecological diversity. Environmental inequality is not accidental. It is a result of decisions made by powerful actors who benefit from the externalization of environmental cost, says Golden Lewis. This reflects how marginalized communities often suffer the consequences of biodiversity loss, toxic exposure, and climate impacts, reinforcing the link between ecological diversity and social inequality. This is just a long way to say the government is involved. It's not just corporations. There's other powerful players that also are aiding to the destruction. Desertification is the erosion and complete annihilation of ecosystems and ecological diversity, the species and resources. One such is the roadless rule. Trump has rolled back the roadless rule, reversing the protection of 59 million acres of national forest from logging, building, and mining, USDA 2025. Trump's plan is to unleash prosperity through deregulation, through Executive Order 14192. His plan is to get rid of overcomplicated, burdensome barriers that hamper innovation. It is a concern of many that a major intent here is to clear the way for corporate logging. Alaska natives also fear what will happen if their salmon habitat, as in the past, road building has contributed to the destruction of 240 miles of salmon habitat. Benkin, 2025. Causes of desertification is overgrazing, deforestation, poor irrigation, and climate change. Also, land policies that prioritize export crops over sustainable land use. We see potential benefits with removing burdensome barriers that hamper innovation, but by rolling back the roadless rule, it's going to put roads throughout all of these national forests, and it does allow for the application of logging and mining industries to come in. Who knows if there's lobbyists that are involved with politics in this. It makes absolute sense if it were to be possible, but we're looking at a potential desertification of some of our natural forests. The last impacting factor is ocean acidification. Ocean acidification is largely covered by metabolic rift. Capitalism disrupts natural cycles, such as carbon absorption in oceans. Urbanization and industrial agriculture sever ecological cycles, i.e. nutrients returning to the soil. This is caused by CO2 emissions from fossil fuels, dissolving in the oceans, lowering the pH, industrial shipping, overfishing, and lack of marine governance exacerbating the problem. Metabolic rift is the disruption of the natural cycle of things. It is humans coming in and through our logistics and our innovation and our technology, just ruining what is the natural cycle of things. And it's, as I had said, it's lowering the pH of the oceans, which in turn is not going to be good for anything in nature. It's already caused complete, irreversible damage to the Great Barrier Reef. And we see in our crops, we have to put in our own nutrients back into it because just the over farming and the non-allowance of returning nutrients. Ocean acidification, desertification, biological pollutants, endangered species, and the loss of biodiversity are all contributing factors to the destruction of ecological diversity. Thank you.